We begin today the Gemara on Daf Pei Tes Amud Beis, 6 lines up from the bottom of the Amud. Tana Rabbanon, we learned in the Braise, Navi Shehidiach, a prophet that is persuading others to serve Avodah Zarah. And he's saying this as a prophecy in the name of Hashem. Beskila. So the Tanna Kama says his einish is death by skila. Rab Shimon says bechenek, that the punishment is death with chenek. The Gemara will soon bring the source of their machlekes. Another argument between them, Madiche Irani Dachas, one that is convincing an entire city to serve Avodah Zarah, beskila. So the Tanna Kama also says that the punishment is skila. However, Rab Shimon says bechenek, that here as well the punishment is chenek. Okay, so the Gemara explains the first argument, Navi Shehidiach, the prophet that is convincing to serve Avodah Zarah b'skila. My time at the Rabbana. What's the reason of the Rabbana that this is skila? The answer is Asye Hadoche Mimesis. He learns out Gzeirishave, the term of Hadoche that it says by the Navi. Rashi brings, it says the pasuk Kidibe Sara Lahadichacha, and then it says the term Hadoche by a mesis, by just an individual that's persuading, convincing others to serve Avodah Zarah. There it says Ki bikesh lahadichacha. So ma'ala halon, just like by the mesis beskila, his punishment is skila, as the pasuk there clearly says, Afkan beskila. So too by the Navi that is convincing others in the name of Hashem with a prophecy to serve Avodah Zarah, that it's also skila. Now, but Rab Shimon argues and says Misa ksiv bey. By the pasuk of the Navi, it says the term in the Torah, it says the term Misa. The pasuk there says, Hanavi Ahu, so on, Yumas. It says the term Misa. And we have the rule, V'chol Misa ha'amur b'Torah stam. Anytime the Torah uses the term Misa, and it doesn't specify which Misa this is, of the 4 categories of Misa, Ein ela chenek. It refers to chenek. And therefore he says, we don't compare it to the Mesis, but rather he's chayiv Misa of chenek. The second argument here was Madiche Irani Dachas Beskila, one that is convincing people, an entire city, to serve Avodah Zarah. So the Tanna Kama says skila. My time at the Rabbanon, what's the reason for their opinion that it's skila? Says the Gemara Gomri, they learn out Hadoche, the same Gzeir Shava, the term Hadoche that it says here regarding one that is persuading a city to serve Avodah Zarah. The lashon that it says in the pasuk there is Yatsu Anoshim Bnei B'Liyab Mikirbecho Vayadichu. The term Hadoche that it says here, and the term of Hadoche that it says now. The Gemara says Oimi Mesis, either from the pasuk that we brought before that it says by the Mesis, an individual that's convincing another individual, not a whole city. There it says Bikesh Lahadichacha. Oy minavi sheidiach, or according to the Rabbana, we learn out from the Navi that is saying a false prophecy to serve Avodah Zarah. There it also uses the term of Hadoche, and according to the Rabbanon, it's skila. Rab Shimon that says that the mediach of a city is chayiv chenek, gomar hadoche minavi. So he learns out gzeir shava of hadoche, but he learns it out from the Navi, not from the Mesis. And according to Rab Shimon, the Navi, the false prophet that says to serve Avodah Zarah, is only chayiv chenek. And we compare here to the one that's convincing a city to serve Avodah Zarah, also the chenek. Now the Gemara asks on this, V'ligmar mi Mesis. Why not compare the term Hadoche that it says here regarding this person that's convincing a city to serve Avodah Zarah to the Mesis that's convincing an individual? And says the Gemara, Donin Mesis Rabim mi Mesis Rabim. We compare, when we have the Gzeir Shava of the term Hadoche, we would rather apply that Gzeir Shava from a person that is convincing many to serve Avodah Zarah to the Navi, which is also a prophet, a false prophecy that is convincing many to serve Avodah Zarah. Ve'ein donen mesis rabim mi mesis yachid. And we don't compare the mesis of the rabbim, which is the one that's madiach a whole city, to a Navi, which is just to a mesis, to an individual that's being mesis, a yachid, an individual to serve Avodah Zarah. That's why we compare it dafka to the Navi that's madiach, and that's convincing many to serve Avodah Zarah. But the Gemara asks on this, Adarabba, I'll give you a svara why the Gzeir Shava should be dafka from an individual that's convincing others to serve Avodah Zarah, not from the Navi. Donin hedyet mehedyet. It's more logical to compare the term Hadoche that it says here which is just a plain person that's convincing a city to serve Avodah Zarah, from another plain individual that's convincing another individual to serve Avodah Zarah. Ve'ein danan hediyot minavi. Why would we compare a hediyot to a navi, a prophet that's saying false prophecy to serve Avodah Zarah? A prophet is already a different thing and a different level. And says the Gemara, no, but Rab Shimon will tell you, kivin shehi diach, this navi that is persuading others to serve Avodah Zarah, ein lecha hediyot gadol mizeh. He's also a hediyot, and actually there's no greater hediyot than this, that he's saying false prophecy in the name of Hashem to go and serve Avodah Zarah, and therefore we do compare to the navi that's mesis, that's convincing many to serve Avodah Zarah, that the mediach that's convincing a city, many to serve Avodah Zarah, is actually similar to him.
How could a navi convince other people to do these averos? Because it doesn't look like he's really a navi if you do that. Because if he's a navi, he wouldn't do something.
It's a false prophecy. It's a false prophecy.
He really thinks that's the right thing to do about Zarah.
If he was a prophet, l'chatchila, the Gemara is soon going to bring an example of a navi that was a navi emes, and then later became a rasha and becomes a navi sheker, and the Yidden are convinced and fooled by him. And he says this nevuah. It doesn't matter if the Yidden are following him or not. That's not when he's chayiv misa, even if they don't believe him at all. But the very fact that he says this prophecy, and this false prophecy in the name of Hashem to serve Avodah Zarah, he's chayiv misa, whether skila or chenek. Okay, now here the Gemara will bring a machlokes amoraim regarding the navi that's convincing to do Avodah Zarah, and the basis of the machlokes the Gemara is going to bring here about this is in the Torah there are actually two parshas about a navi sheker. There's one parsha which is a parsha specifically about the navi that's convincing others to serve Avodah Zarah. That's a parsha of the navi that's madiach. Then there's another parsha in the Torah which is not talking about a navi that's mediach, but it's talking about a navi sheker, a navi that just says false prophecy, not specifically regarding Avodah Zarah, but even regarding other things. He says not to do a mitzvah and so on. These are two different parshas. So now, back here to the machlokes of the Rabbanon and Rab Shimon regarding the navi that's mediach, whether he gets skila and chenek, regarding what case are they arguing about? So Amar Rav Chisda says, machlokes, the argument of the Rabbanon and Rab Shimon regarding this punishment of Misa here is be'oker aguf da avedas kechavim. It's in a case where the Navi comes and says a false prophecy in the name of Hashem that you can go ahead and serve Avodah Zarah. He is oiker, he uproots the entire Isser of serving Avodah Zarah. Or, another case, v'kiyam miktsas ubitul miktsas avedas kechavim. Even if he doesn't uproot the entire Isser of Avodah Zarah, but he comes and he says that some things about Avodah Zarah are allowed, this case is allowed, that case is not allowed. So it's learned out from what it says there in the Pasuk. This Navi, we have here the pasuk that's quoted you see it here on the side of the Gemara. It says, "V'hanavi Yahu echelem achalem Yahu yumas kidibe sara al Hashem lekechem ametzias chameretz mitzrayim v'apoitchem be'savadon lahadichachem and aderech hashetziva." So from the lashon of the pasuk over here that it says lahadichachem min aderech. So here now the Gemara darshans this. Let's see. The Rachmana Amar. The pasuk says min haderech. He's convincing you to go off from the pathway. That means afilu miktsas haderech. Not, even if it's not that he tells you that there's no Issa Avodah Zarah at all, but even if he's uprooting somewhat of the Issa Avodah Zarah, he is also in this parsha, where it speaks about specifically this Navi Madiach regarding Avodah Zarah. There, the Rabban and Rab Shimon are arguing whether you make the Gzeir Shava, whether you learn not to be Chayiv Skila or Chenek. Now, Aval, however, Oikera Guf the Shar Mitzvahs. If the Navi comes and he's a false prophet and says a nevuah to uproot other mitzvahs, the entire mitzvah, to uproot an entire mitzvah. So in such a case, it's not this parsha. According to Rav Chisda, that's a different parsha of a Navi Sheker that's learned out from other psukim later on in Chumash Dvarim. And over there, in that case, Divrei Hakol B'Chenek. In that parsha, there's no term of hadocha. In that parsha, he's chayiv chenek, and everybody will agree to this. As Rashi brings, it's a different parsha. It's a parsha of a Navi Sheker, Asher Yozid L'daber B'Shmi, that he speaks in my name to uproot a mitzvah. There, everybody will agree that it's chenek. It's a different parsha. Now, the Kiyu Miktsas, Ubitul Miktsas, the Bishar mitzvahs, if the Navi, regarding other mitzvahs, is saying that the mitzvah does not have to be uprooted completely, but it should be uprooted partially. An example for this would be where a Navi Sheker comes and says that this mitzvah, there's one time that you're allowed to be over on this mitzvah. So then in such a case, Divrei Hakol Pater. Everybody would agree that this Navi Sheker is Pater. He's not Chayiv Misa. And Rashi says, because there, in that parsha of the Navi Sheker, it uses the Lashon, as I mentioned before, the Pasuk, Asher Yazid L'daber Dovar B'Shmi. Dovar means it has to be a Dovar. He fully uproots the mitzvah. He says that this mitzvah, That's it, it's over. You don't have to do it anymore. Then it's chayiv chenek. But if he says that half a davar, like this mitzvah, you don't have to do today, but you do it tomorrow, then he's going to be potter. So this is the way Rav Chisda understands this. As I mentioned, it's based on the fact that there are two different parshas in the Torah: the parsha of the Navi Madiach of Avodah Zarah, and then the parsha of the Navi Sheker regarding other mitzvahs. And there, it's only if he's oiker the whole entire guf of the mitzvah. But Rav Amnuna asks on this, and here he quotes the pasuk that it actually says in the parsha regarding the Navi Madiach for Avodah Zarah, but in the continuation of the pasuk it says. Pasuk I read before, so what does it say in the continuation of the pasuk? He's going to try to convince you to go off the pathway. To go in it. So here, this Braisa, Darshans, this pasuk laleches ba that says in that parsha of the Navi Madiach that laleches zu mitzvah saseh. It means that he takes you away from a mitzvah saseh. And then when it says the word ba, zu mitzvah lo saseh. That word is saying that he takes you away from fulfilling or keeping away from a mitzvah loisese. So these two words, laleches ba, which are extra in the pasuk, is adding a mitzvah say and a mitzvah loisese. So now, says Rav Amnuna, if you're going to say, like Rav Chisda said, that these two parshas are divided, the parsha of the Navi Madiach is only Avodah Zarah in this parsha. It's not talking about a Navi Sheker that's speaking about not doing any other mitzvah. But if that's the case, so then heichi mishkachas lo. Where is there a mitzvah saseh regarding Avodah Zarah? All the isurim in the Torah regarding Avodah Zarah are mitzvah saseh, not mitzvah saseh. So this drasha of laleches that refers to mitzvah saseh seems to indicate that in this parsha it's also speaking about a mitzvah, not just Avodah Zarah. So now Tirgum Rav Chisda answered and explained according to his opinion, no, this parsha is still only about Avodah Zarah. Because v'nitatz them, the mitzvah that there is to break and bash a mizbeach of Avodah Zarah, which is a mitzvah saseh, that is a mitzvah saseh regarding Avodah Zarah, and that's what the parsha here is talking about. This is according to Rav Chisda. Okay. However, Rav Amnuna has a different interpretation to this. He doesn't divide the two parshas the way Rav Chisda did, that the first parsha is only speaking specifically about Avodah Zarah. No. This drasha of leleches zu mitzvah saseh and ba zu mitzvah loisese, we see that it's also talking about other mitzvahs. So how do we divide these two parshas? So Rav Amnuna says, machloikes, the argument between Rabbanan and Rab Shimon regarding this parsha, that's the Navi Madiach, what he's chayiv, which misa is chayiv for being Madiach, it's not only talking about Avodah Zarah. So the machloikes is ba'ikar aguf, when he's uprooting the essence of the mitzvah, which is bein b'avodas kechavim. This is referring to Avodah Zarah, which it says explicitly in the parsha, and also bein b'shar mitzvahs. And the same is also regarding other mitzvahs, because of the drasha that he quoted from the Braisa. Laleches ba includes even other mitzvahs, that when you uproot the entire mitzvah, it's the same like convincing to serve Avodah Zarah, and here the machlekes of Rabban and Rab Shimon will apply whether you chayiv chenek or skila. Now, v'kiyom miktsas ubitul miktsas ta'avedis kechavim. When it comes to Avodah Zarah, if the Navi is convincing to uproot Avodah Zarah partially, meaning, for example, he comes and says, today you can serve Avodah Zarah, but tomorrow you can't. So the Rachmana Amar min haderech. So those words of min haderech here, regarding the rest of what Rav Amnuna says, he agrees to what Rav Chisda said. That when it says in the Torah min haderech, those words refers to just Avodah Zarah. Afilu miktsas haderech, even if it's just a little bit of the pathway referring to Avodah Zarah. So the misa of this pasuk here will still apply. And here's the machlokes of Rab Shimon and the Rabbanon. The continuation of the pasuk after the words min haderech in the pasuk, it goes on to say leleches ba. That refers to other mitzvahs. Regarding other mitzvahs, it's only if he convinces to uproot the entire mitzvah. Regarding Avodah Zarah, it's whether he prophesizes to uproot Avodah Zarah at all completely, or he says even partially, not to do that it doesn't apply today, but it does apply tomorrow. That's but the point is that according to Rav Amnuna, even in this parsha, it's not just speaking about Avodah Zarah. It's also including to uproot the guf of another mitzvah. Okay, now avokia mitzvahs, miktsas that is, ubitul miktsas, the bishar mitzvahs. But just like Rav Chisda said, when it comes to other mitzvahs, if a navi comes and says that you can uproot it partially and fulfill it partially, which means, for example, he says today you don't have to do it, tomorrow you do, then divrei akel pater, everybody will agree that you're pater for this. Okay, so as you see, the only detail that he's arguing on Rav Chisda is b'nigeya to uprooting the entire mitzvah. regarding other mitzvahs, uprooting the entire mitzvah, whether that's included in the parsha of Avodah Zarah as well. Again? Okay, so we'll see soon over here. This concept of a Navi uprooting a mitzvah only partially, which as I mentioned is the example of a Navi that says, today you don't have to do the mitzvah, tomorrow you do. That's something that a Navi could say as a Hiraz Shah, and you actually have to follow this Navi. If you know that this Navi is a Navi Emes, the Gemara brought before on Daf Pei Tes, like Eliyahu Bahara Carmel, so that he uprooted the mitzvah of Shchutei Chutz, and he said that the Isser of Shchutei Chutz, today it's allowed and tomorrow it's not. So in such a case, you have to follow what the Navi says. And even if he says it as over there it's by a Navi Emes, but over here it's saying is even if it's a Navi Sheker, but nevertheless, if he's not uprooting the mitzvah entirely, it's Asr, but it's gonna be Potter. Okay, now the Gemara here brings a Braisa, and it will interpret this Braisa according to both opinions, Rav Chista's opinion and Rav Amnun's opinion. So now Tan Rabbanan, in the Braisa we learned, one that prophesizes a false prophecy, to uproot something in the Torah, Chayiv. So he'll be chayiv for this. So now, what are we talking about? To uproot what? So it doesn't say here in the Braisa specifically, are we talking about uprooting of a Zarah or uprooting a mitzvah entirely? But it just says chayiv. And it doesn't say any machlekes about this. According to what we learned before, there's a machlekes. Are you chayiv chenek? Are you chayiv skila? But this Braisa doesn't make any distinction. Then the Braisa goes on to say, lekayim mitzvah miktsas or levatel miktsas, to be mekayim miktsas of a mitzvah, or to be mevatel miktsas of a mitzvah. That's what it seems like it's talking about. So it says Rab Shimon paiter. Rab Shimon says that you'll be pater in such a case. Now this is also different from what we learned before, because over here it says Rab Shimon paters in this case, but according to what we learned before, it's not only Rab Shimon. Everybody agrees that in the case where by all mitzvahs, if the Navi is only oiker miktsas or mevatel miktsas, everybody would agree you're pater. So the Gemara will explain that as well. And the third point of Braisa says, "Ubavedes kechavim," regarding Avodah Zarah. Afilu aymer ayayim ivdua ulamacha betlua. If he's uprooting it partially, he says today you can serve Avodah Zarah, tomorrow you can't. Divrei Yakoel chayiv. Everybody will agree that in such a case he'll be chayiv. And now this is also like we learned before, but over here there's a machlekes about this. Whether you'll be chayiv chenek, whether you'll be chayiv skila, and the Braisa doesn't say any of these details. The chayre here, this is according to what we learned before. This is where the machlekes of Rab Shimon and the Rabbanan applies, whether it'll be chayiv chenek or skila in this case. No, not regarding Avodah Zarah. Regarding Avodah Zarah, right? The last case of the Braisa is Avodah Zarah. So over here, there should be a machlekes, but the Braisa doesn't say anything about a machlekes. Okay, but the Gemara will explain. Says the Gemara, Abaye savalak Rav Chizda. Abaye held like Rav Chizda's opinion mentioned before, and therefore metaretz like Rav Chizda. He explains this Braisa like Rav Chizda. Rave savalak Rav Amnuna. Rava holds like Rav Amnuna, umetaretz like Rav Amnuna. And he explains this Braisa like Rav Amnuna. So again, just bekitzer, the point there is, the difference between Rav Chizda and Rav Amnuna, the only detail that they argue about is regarding a Navi that comes and says to be mevatel an entire mitzvah. Is that included in the parsha of the Navi Madiach, which is saying to serve Avodah Zarah? That there'll be the machlekes between Rab Shimon and the Rabbanan, whether Yechayev chenek or skila, or no. The case of being mevatel an entire mitzvah is a separate parsha. It's not included in this parsha. And over there, everybody would agree that it's chenek. That's the detail that they argue about. Okay, so now let's see the two pshatim in this Braisa. So the Gemara says, Abaye savalak Rav Chizda, metaretz like Rav Chizda. Abaye learns like Rav Chizda, and therefore he explains his Braisa like Rav Chizda's opinion. When it says in the first part of the Braisa, Misnabe lav laker davim and atayra, that a Navi that says a prophecy to uproot something in the Torah completely, Divrei Akel b'chenek. Over here, everybody will agree that the punishment is chenek. Why? Because what are we talking about? To uproot a mitzvah, not to uproot Avodah Zarah. If it's regarding Avodah Zarah, here there would be a machlekes between Rab Shimon and the Rabbanan, whether it's chenek or skila. That's the parsha of the Navi Madiach. But this Braisa, though, in the beginning, is only speaking about uprooting an entire mitzvah, which is the other parsha of the Navi Sheker, and in this case, everybody agrees that the punishment is chenek. Now, lekayim miktsas, or levatel miktsas, regarding any mitzvah, to uproot it only partially, Rab Shimon paiter. In this case, the Braisa says that Rab Shimon will pater for this, but it's not only Rab Shimon. V'hu adin l'Rabbanan. The truth is that the Rabbanan agreed to this as well, but the Braisa is saying Rab Shimon paiter. Now Rashi explains the reason why the Braisa is saying Rab Shimon paiter, because it wants you to understand that when it said in the first place, in the first case that is, in the first case when it said chayiv, the Braisa didn't spell out chayiv what? Which misa? But it's chayiv chenek. And therefore it follows up by saying Rab Shimon paiter, because according to Rab Shimon, regarding a false prophet, there's only one misa, and that's chenek. regardless of what case it is, Rab Shimon's opinion, as we saw before, is the misa of a Navi Sheker in any case is always chenek. And therefore it follows up specifically by saying Rab Shimon paiter, so that will give you the clarity that when it said right before chayiv, it means chenek. And on that, Rab Shimon paiter of chenek. But really, according to the Rabbanan, you would also be pater. But since according to the Rabbanan there's skila, so it doesn't want to mention Rabbanan. It wants it to be clear that what it said before is chenek. That's why it mentions specifically Rab Shimon. That's Rashi's pshat. Now, the last part of the Braise, ubavodas kechavim, when it comes to avodah zarah, afilu ama hayom yivdu alamacha betlua. If a Navi Sheker comes and says today you can serve avodah zarah and tomorrow not, chayiv. In such a case, you'll be chayiv. Now, what will this Navi Sheker be chayiv? This is a case of the Navi Madiach, and it's part of the parish of the Navi Madiach, as the Gemara darshan before min haderech. Even if he's taking you off partially from the way of avodah zarah, with avodah zarah, so marka de islay or marka de islay. The Braisa doesn't spell out that there's a machlokes, but here there is a machlokes whether it'll be chenek or it'll be skila. According to the Rabbanan, according to Rab Shimon, it's chenek, as we saw before. This is the pshat and the Braisa according to Rav Chisda. Now, the Rav is of Allah, Rav Amnuna. Rav's opinion is like Rav Amnuna, and therefore Mataretz law, Rav Amnuna. He explains his Braisa like Rav Amnuna's opinion. And therefore, the first case of the Braisa is not only talking about a mitzvah, but it's talking about avodah zarah as well. Hamisna belakadavim in Torah, one that prophesies to uproot something in Torah. Bein b'avodas kechavim, and bein b'shar mitzvahs, whether it's avodah zarah, whether other mitzvahs. What's the halacha in this case? According to Rav Amnuna's opinion, in this parsha of the Navi Madiach, it's talking both about avodah zarah and about other mitzvahs as well, because he holds the drush of leleches ba. It talks about other mitzvahs as well. So over here, the Braisa says chayiv. Now, what's the chayiv? Chayiv is, not everybody agrees what the chayiv is. Marka de islay, marka de islay. According to Rav Amnuna, here is the argument of Rab Shimon and the Rabbanan, whether it's going to be skila according to the Rabbanan or chenek according to Rab Shimon. Then the next case of the Braisa, l'kayim miktzas, levatel miktzas, bishar mitzvahs, to uproot a mitzvah only partially, not regarding avodah zarah, but regarding other mitzvahs. Rab Shimon paiter. So the Braisa says that Rab Shimon paters in this case, but v'hu adin l'Rabbanan. According to the Rabbanan, you'd be pater as well. And here Rashi explains the reason the Braisa says Rab Shimon paiter is because according to the Rabbanan, it's skila. You pater from skila. The Braisa wants to say, not only you pater from skila, you even pater from a lower level of a misa, which is chenek, and therefore it mentions Rab Shimon paiter. But really, the Rabbanan agree as well. And then the last case of the Braisa, this is also the same as we said before. In this case, Rav Amnuna agrees to Rav Chisda, ubavodas kechavim, regarding avodah zarah, afilu ema hayom yivdu alamacha betlua. He says today you could serve and tomorrow not. Chayiv, the Braisa says chayiv, and here chayiv as well. There's a machlekes about this. Marka de islay, marka de islay. There's an argument between Rab Shimon and the Rabbanan on what that chayiv is, if it's chenek or skila. That's the two ways of understanding this Braisa with the two opinions here. Amar Abavo, Amar Rab Yechanan, bakoil, regarding anything. If a Navi comes and says to you, you should be over on what it says in the Torah, shmaloi. You have to listen to him. Because when a Navi that you know and it's verified, there's a Navi MS, and he comes and says to you, Bahira Shah, to be over on what it says in the Torah, you have to listen to him. Besides, if he comes and tells you, even as a Hira Shah, to be over to serve avodah zarah today, then you don't listen to him. Even if he makes the sun stop in the middle of the sky, al tishmalai. Do not listen to him. Tanya, Rabbi Yosef Glili said, the Torah understands the end of what avodah zarah could do and the power it has. And therefore the Torah speaks even of such a case, where you see the power of the avodah zarah to stop the sun in the middle of the day, and nevertheless you see such a miracle that a Navi does, and it tells you, based on this, that you should serve avodah zarah even just today, now. Nevertheless, this is not something that you listen to this Navi Amadiach, a Navi Sheker. And this Navi will be chayiv misa, and you don't. This concept the Gemara is trying to say over here is that this koyach that a Navi has to say is a hiraz shah to be over on Torah. Sorry, it does not apply to avodah zarah. Now, Tanya in the Braisa we learned, Rabbi Akiva said about this, Chas v'sholem, shakadosh baruch hu maimet chama lo'ever ritzayne. God forbid, there's no such a thing that there's a koyach to a Navi Sheker to cause such a thing to happen, that the sun will stop in the middle of the sky, in the middle of the day, for the purpose of avodah zarah. Ella, what is it talking about here? Kagan Chananya ben Azar, shemitchilasai Navi Yemesa. The Chananya ben Azar, which was in the times of Yirmiyah, as the Gemara brought before in Daf Peites, and he said false prophecy. But in the beginning, he was a tzaddik. In the beginning, he was a true Navi. But then Navi Sheker. In the end, he turned out to become a Navi Sheker. So even if he, which was first a Navi Emes, and you trust him and he makes a miracle like this, and then later on he goes and says a Navi Sheker, he says a Nevuah Sheker to serve Avodah Zarah, you don't listen to him. That's what it's talking about. But a Navi Sheker does not have the koyach to do such a thing. Hashem would not allow such a thing to happen, to stop the sun in the middle of the day. Okay, now we go to the last point that it said in the Mishnah regarding the list of those that are chayiv in the misa of chenek. It said v'zaymimei bas kayin. The bas kayin, if she's mizana, she's chayiv the misa of sreifa when she's an eshes ish. But the zaymimei bas kayin, Adam that testified about her that she did this, and then they were found to be Adam zaymim in false testimony, and the punishment is kashazamam. They don't get the einish of sreifa, rather the einish of chenek. And similar, the Mishnah said regarding the bayil, the one that had the relation with this bas kayin, also does not get sreifa but chenek. Says the Gemara immediately, what's the source for this? The Tanya, we learned Rav Yesi Aimer. Rav Yesi says, why does it say the words there, lasais la'achiv? Those words are extra. The pasuk could have just simply said, Vasisim lekashazamam lasais. Why does it have to say to the brother? The answer is, Lafi shekal hamuzmamin, or the other gerse here in the Gemara, which fits better, is mikol hamumasin. All those that are chayiv misa, when they intended to give someone else misa by their false testimony, just like the misa that the Adam intended to give, they get the same misa. And also the bayil and the isha, the ish and the isha, both in this case when they are mizana with one another, usually they get the same misa. Kayetzeben. But Bas Kayin, however, when it comes by the Bas Kayin, he bisreifa, she, the Torah is machman and she gets the misa of sreifa, what vein bayil of bisreifa, but the bayil does not get sreifa, right? And that's learned out from what it says, he tisarif, only her, not the bayil. And Zaymimin, when it comes to the Adam Zaymimin that said false testimony against her, Eini Ideya, so I wouldn't know, Im Loi Hukshu, whether I compare the Adam Zaymimin to the bayil and to say that they get the misa like the bayil, or Im La Hukshu, or they get the misa like the Isha, like the Bas Kayin that they intended to give misa, which is Reifa. Which misa do the Adam Zaymimin get? That's why the Torah wrote the extra word la'achiv to say that it's la'achiv v'lo la'chaisai, that the Adam Zaymimin get the misa of what they wanted to give the bayil, the man, and not the woman, not its sister. That's the drasha here is. Now there's a big machlekes rishonim about this, exactly what the drasha is. According to the Rambam, the drasha is, as it sounds simply in the Gemara, that we're talking about Adam Zaymimin that testified against both the man and the woman. And therefore they intended actually to give a misa of sreifa to her and the misa of chenek to him. And it's in this case where the Torah says that he gets chenek. But according to other rishonim, it's even talking about a case where the Adam only said edus against her. They don't know, they didn't identify the bayil b'chal. They only said edus about her, that she's chayiv sreifa, and there is no bayil here of chenek. And nevertheless, the Adam Zaymimin do not get sreifa, they only get chenek, which is the punishment of achiv, of the bayil. Hadran alach, Eluhein and Echnokin, we shall return to you the 10th Perek of Masechta Sanhedrin, Perek Eluhein and Echnokin. We continue with the next Perek, Kol Yisrael Yeshlam Chelek Leilam Haba. This is a famous Perek, and this is referred to as Perek Chelek, which will discuss all matters related to Eilam Haba and La'asad Lavi and Tchias HaMeisim and all matters related to Yemais HaMashiach. The reason why this Perek comes here in the Masechta is because after it spoke about the 4 different categories of people that did Averis, that are Chayiv, the Misa, in the 4 categories of Skilus, Reifa, Herek, and Chenek, and they, once they get this Misa, the Mishnah said before, they then have a Chelek Leilam Haba. So here the Mishnah goes on to say that these are the Yidden that have a Chelek Leilam Haba, and then it'll go on to list those that do not have a Chelek in Leilam Haba. That's simply what the continuation of this Perek here is. All Yidden have a portion in the world to come. Shanem, as the pasuk says, Va'amech kulam tzadikim. They are all tzadikim, and la'olam yirshu aretz. They all will inherit the land. And the aretz here refers to olam haba. Neitzer matoi, a branch of my planting. Maise yodai, my handiwork lehispar, that Hashem says I take pride of. That's now when it says here in the Mishnah, olam haba. What does Olam Haba refer to? So it's famous, the opinion of the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva is that Olam Haba refers to Beruchnius, Gan Eden. Doesn't refer to the time of Tchias HaMeisim. However, the Ramban and in Teres Achsidis, in Maimarim, the Hachra is according to, and in Kabbalah, the Hachra is like the shit of the Ramban, that Kol Yisrael Yeshlam Chelek Olam Haba refers to the time of Tchias HaMeisim, because the Tachlis of everything is for the Neshama to come back into the Guf, And dafke there is the tachlis of the schar, and the tachlis of everything would not Noilam Haba, but dafke Noilam Hazeh. And which means then that what the Mishnah is saying here, that Kol Yisrael Yeshnu Chelik Leilam Haba, this is a Mishnah that's expressing the tremendous mila of every single Yid without exception. Not only the neshama of a Yid, but according to the Ramban, even the guf of a Yid, the physical body of a Yid here in this world. There's many discussions about in Chassidus about this power of the koyach of a Yid and the existence of a Yid, that every Yid has a chelik leilam haba. In one place it says that this is the koyach of the ma'isa mitzvahs of a Yid. Even if a Yid is not on a level to be able to learn Torah on a high level, that's Gan Eden, that's the schar of Gan Eden. But the ma'isa mitzvahs, the physical mitzvah, a Yid does. And there's no Yid that didn't do a mitzvah. All Yisrael, even Paish Yisrael, Malay mitzvahs kerima, and have a chelik leilam haba. But another pshat is, and as it seems in the simple pshat, that it refers to the very identity of the Yid. As the pasuk the Gemara brings, that every Yid is Neitzah Matoy, Ma'is Yad L'Spar. Hashem takes pride of the very existence of the Yid, not only the Neshama, but the guf of a Yid as well, according to the Ramban, here in Eilam Hazeh, that the guf, the physical guf of a Yid is nitzchi. There's the etzem luz of a Yid, that the Eibishter then is mechayim mesim, and the whole the time period when a Yid is not alive is not the permanent existence of a Yid. The permanent existence of a Yid is to be here eternally, nitzchi in Eilam Hazeh, in the time of tchias mesim, and this is for all Yidden. That's the opening of the Mishnah. Now, the Mishnah goes on to say, the following are the ones that do not have a portion for Eilam Haba. Okay, we'll see the list here in a second. But when the Mishnah goes on to say that these do not have a chelik Eilam Haba, so the pshat in the Mishnah literally and simply is that there are a list of Yidden that are mentioned here in this Mishnah, and there's additional ones that are not mentioned here that do not have a portion of Eilam Haba. But there's one place in a letter where the Rebbe wrote Barichas Gedayla, pages and pages. It's not here in the context of this shir to go through the whole inyan, where the Rebbe explained that even after it says Elu she'elam chelik leilam haba, it doesn't mean literally that they will not at all have a portion in the world to come. There's different pshatim in this inyan of Elam chelik leilam haba. It depends what level of a portion in Eilam Haba. It also depends in which guf, because as we know, a neshama comes into the world more than one gilgul. It comes in one guf, on another guf. So even when it says they will not have a chelik leilam haba, maybe it means not in this guf, but in another guf. But also it could mean, what will they have their own specific, unique portion to Eilam Haba, or will they be in a general chelik leilam haba? So when it says Elam chelik leilam haba, it doesn't mean kipshuta that they will not have any portion at all in Eilam Haba. That's how the Rebbe teaches this. Now, so who are they? Ha'aymer ain't chiyas hamesim and atayra. Those that say that there's no Tchias HaMesim and Atayra, and Ashi says what this means is even if they agree to Tchias HaMesim, but they just say that there's no source for Tchias HaMesim in a pasuk in the Torah, even then that's enough of a reason that you will not have a Chelik Neilam Haba. Or they say Vein Torah Min HaShemayim, one that says that the Torah is not Min HaShemayim. V'apikaitis, and those that are apikaisim, which will be explained in the Gemara, who is an apikaitis, someone that's a heretic. And here is where you have in the Rambam, in the Pirush HaMishnayos, the famous Rambam, where he brings the Yud Gimel Ikrim, the 13 principles of faith, that is the source of the Emunah in every year, that according to the Rambam, if he denies any of these Yud Gimel Ikri Emunah, is an apikaitis. Rabbi Kiva says, even if he reads just the books about these things that are opposite of Amunah, he also doesn't have a portion in the world to come. Someone that's saying on a makkah, and he says like similar to the way in a way of kishuv, he says the pasuk in the Torah, and he's doing it in a degrading manner, as we'll see in the Gemara. Then he doesn't have a portion to the world to come. Abishal says, one that explicitly says the name of Hashem, Yudke Vavke, and he says it in a way that it's the opposite of honor for Hashem. Now, Shloishim Malachim, there are 3 kings, V'arba had Yetis, and another 4 individuals. Elam Chelik Leilam Haba. They do not have a Chelik Leilam Haba. Shloishim Malachim, who are they? Yeravam, that brought Yidden to serve Avodah Zarah. Achav also, that was a big Rasha and brought Yidden to serve Avodah Zarah, and Menashe. And Menashe as well was a king and killed many, and also brought Yidden to serve Avodah Zarah. Rabbi Yehuda, however, Rabbi Yehuda argues and says, Menashe yesh lo chelik leilam haba. Shenema vayispala leilov, that he davened, and vayishmat chinos, Hashem heard his supplication, vayishiveyu Yerushalayim l'machusei, and Hashem returned him to his kingdom Yerushalayim. So we see that he did tshuva. Amru Loi, however, they said to Rabbi Yehuda, l'malchusei yeshivai, he was returned to his kingdom, but v'lei l'chai olam haba, but his portion in the chai olam haba he did not receive. V'lei l'chai olam haba yeshiva, he was not returned to his portion of olam haba. Now, who are the Arba Hedyatis? They don't have a portion of the world to come. Bilam, which is Bilam as a guy.
Sure.
So here we see that even by Goyim, Chsidei Umas Ha'olam will be in Olam Haba, and we'll see more about this later in the Gemara. But here it's saying even though Chsidei Umas Ha'olam will be in Olam Haba, but not Bilam, the Dayig, which was an advisor to Shaul, and he killed the city Ira Kayanim, and Achitophel, which was an advisor to David HaMelech, and then he mounted a rebellion together with Avshalom against David HaMelech, and Gehazi, which was an advisor to Elisha, which also sinned. They do not have a chelik in Olam Haba. So what's the reason going back to the first individual that doesn't have a chelik Olam Haba because he's kafir in Tchias HaMeisim? Says the Gemara, Tana, we learned in the Braisa, who kafir b'Tchias HaMeisim, since he denies in Tchias HaMeisim, lefichach so therefore he does not have a chelik in Tchias HaMeisim. Hashem behaves measure for measure, and that's why over here he doesn't believe in Tchias HaMeisim. He does not get up for Tchias HaMeisim. From where do we know that Hashem behaves measure for measure? Now the pasuk says, Elisha said in the time when there was a big hunger in Shemron in Eretz Yisrael, and he said, at this time, Machar saw Seiles b'shekel. One saw of flour will be, you could pay just a shekel for it, and sasayim sa'irim b'shekel. And 2 saw of barley will be also a shekel, b'shar Shemron, and the price of Shemron, and the gates of Shemron. So he said, even though it's a hunger, but this will be the price tomorrow. And now it says, Vayana shalish asher lamelech, the shalish, he was standing in front of the king, and he says to him, Nishan al yadeh, was leaning on his hands as ish holikim, referring to Elisha. And he says, Hini Hashem oisa rubis b'shamayim. What is Hashem going to do? It'll be open up windows in heaven. Is this possible that tomorrow the price will be so low? So Elisha answered him because he didn't believe in this. So he answered him and said, you will see this with your own eyes, but because you didn't believe in this, so you will get punished and you will not have to eat from this. And the pasuk then goes on to say that it was punished. And the people there, they trampled upon him and he killed him at the gates and he died. So here we see the concept of midah keneged midah. Since he didn't believe in it, and therefore he wasn't able to eat from it either. But the Gemara asks, it's not a source. Vidilma, I can say the reason why he died then is because kilulas Elisha garmale. It's the curse of Elisha that caused this. When a chacham curses, even if it's not for a good enough of a reason, it still comes. So maybe he died because of the klala of Elisha, but not necessarily is it a source for Hashem's behavior of midah keneged midah. Answers the Gemara, no, there's an extra word in the pasuk here. That he was trampled upon and he died. My bashar. Why does it add the word bashar in the gate? The answer is al iskei shar, because he didn't believe in what Elisha said in his prophecy that in the shar and the gate that the price will go down, and therefore he died. That's the source for Hashem's behavior with people midah keneged midah. Rabbi Yechanan said, where is the source in a pasuk in Torah for Tchias HaMeisim? Shenema, the pasuk says, by the mitzvah of giving trumah, unesata mimenu es trumas Hashem la'aron hakayin. You give the trumah to who? To Aaron hakayin. But the question here is, Aaron la'olam kayam, is Aaron always alive that you give him the trumah? So the Gemara doesn't literally mean la'olam. It's saying that how can you say that there's a mitzvah to give trumah to Aaron? Aaron hakayin passed away in the midbar. He didn't enter into Eretz Yisrael at all. How are you even giving him trumah? Ella, therefore, the answer is Malamid Asad Lichyais, that he's going to live again, and then V'Yisrael Noisnim Loy Truma. And Yidden are going to give him Truma Mikan L'Tchias HaMeisim in Atayre. This is the source for Tchias HaMeisim. However, the Bei Rabbi Shmuel Tana, by Rabbi Shmuel, they darshan this pasuk differently. La'arayin, when it says give your Truma to Arayin, even though Aaron wasn't in Eretz Yisrael, but what it's saying is Ke'arayin, give a kain that's like Aaron. Ma Aaron chaver, just like Aaron is a chaver, he's a Talmid Chacham and he's a tzaddik. Av banav chaverim. So too, when you give a kain truma, you give it to a kain that's a Talmid Chacham, not a kain that's a Am Haaretz. How do I know that you should not give the truma to a kain which is an Am Haaretz? Because the pasuk says, you should give the portion of your produce for the truma and the meiser. Who do you give it to? You give it to the kainim and the levim, leman yachesku b'teiras Hashem, so that they should have the kayach to be strong to learn the Torah of Hashem. Which means kol hamachzik b'teiras Hashem yesh lemenas. If it's a kayin that's keeping the Torah of Hashem and learning the Torah of Hashem, he gets a portion of the truma. V'she'ena machzik b'teiras Hashem ein lemenas. But if he's not keeping the Torah of Hashem, he should not get a portion. So you should not give the truma to a kayin which is an Am Haaretz. If you give you the truma that is to the kohen that's an amaretz, it's like you're giving it in front of a lion. A lion, there's a suffix of whether he tramples and he attacks and he eats right away his prey that he attacked, or he does not eat right away. What he does is he takes it later on into his hole and he eats it later. So too regarding the kind of that's an amaretz, you're giving him truma, but he may eat it betara, but he also may eat it when he's tameh. So therefore you shouldn't give it to him. And one pshat Rashi says that when the lion attacks and he eats, he can either eat what he just attacked when it's still disgusting, or he can take it into his hole and eat it later when it's not disgusting. It's similar to the nimshal regarding the kain. He can eat when it's tahir or eat when it's tameh. So therefore don't give to this kain which is an amaretz. Rabbi Yechanan says, Av gaidim loy misa. You're giving to a kain and amaretz truma, you can cause him to die. Shenema o meisu baiki chalalu. As we learned earlier in the Masechta, a kain tameh that eats truma is chayiv misa b'dei shemayim. The Be'er Eliezer ben Yaakov Tana Af Masiyah of an Ashma. You bring him to an Aveda, many Avedas you bring on him. Shenema, the pasuk says, V'siyu oisam avayin Ashma v'achlam es kachayin, that he eats from the kachim when he's tamei, then he's chayiv many Avedas. Tanya Rab Simai Yomen, Abraisu learned Rab Simai said, Menayin l'tchias hamesim in Atayra. What's the source of tchias hamesim? The pasuk Shenema, it says, V'gam hakimaisi es brisi itam laseis lahem es eretz Canaan. This is the pasuk where it speaks to the Oves, and it says, Hashem says, I made a bond with you to give you the land eretz Canaan. Now the pasuk, the Gemara says, Lochem loy nema. It doesn't use the term lochem. Lochem would mean to them, meaning to the Oves, to their descendants, but not to the Oves themselves. Because they did not inherit Eretz Canaan. Elo lahem, it says actually to them that they will inherit Eretz Canaan. But they did not though. So the answer is, Mikan, the Tchias HaMesim and Atayra. It uses the term lahem to say that the Oves will get up by Tchias HaMesim and will inherit the land. The Gemara brings a siman for the continuation of the discussion that there was regarding this. Tzedek gam geshe kam siman. Shal u'mininis Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel, that was asked by heretics. Menayin shakadosh baruch hu mechayim mesim. What's the source in the pasuk that Hashem will be mechayim mesim? Amalem min atayre u'min ha'neviyim u'min ha'ksuvim. He brought them a proof from a pasuk in Tanakh. V'lei kiblu mimenu. They didn't accept. Min atayre, he said the pasuk. The pasuk says, Vayem Hashem al Moshe. Hirach sheichev ma'visecha. You will die with your ancestors. V'kam. And then it says, and you will get up again. So v'kam means it'll get up with tchias hamesim. Amru loi, but they answered him and said, no, maybe the word v'kam is read separately with the continuation of the pasuk. V'dilma, you read it v'kam ha'amazev izana, that after you will die, this nation will get up and will go against Hashem. So the word v'kam is not read together with Sheikh with Moshe Rabbeinu, but with the continuation of the pasuk. So there's no source from here. Then he brought them a pasuk in Navi. Min ha'neviim d'chsev yichyu meisecha. Your dead will live. Nivlaisi yikumun. The dead corpses will get up. Hakitzu v'rananu sheichne afar, that they will awaken the ones that are in dust. Kital oides talecha v'eretz erfam tapel. So in this pasuk you see, it says clearly that the dead will get up again. But they didn't agree, they didn't accept this source as well, because they said, V'dilme meisim shehechi Yecheskel. Maybe this pasuk here, which is a pasuk in Yeshaya, which was before Yecheskel, maybe the nevuah he's saying is regarding Yecheskel that was Machaya Meisim in his times, but it's not referring to the Tchias HaMeisim for Olam Haba. Then he brought them a pasuk min Aksuvim. The pasuk says, V'chikecha chikech keyayin atoiv hoylech l'daidi l'meisharim doivev sifsi yishanim. The pasuk concludes doivev sifsi yishanim, which means that even the ones that are sleeping, that are buried, that they're the yishanim, even them, they're going to begin to speak again, and that refers to tchias hamesim. But they didn't accept this either. They said, maybe all it means is even while they are buried, but their lips are going to be moving in their kever. But it doesn't mean that they're going to have tchias hamesim. And Rabbi Yechanan, we can say like Rabbi Yechanan said, anybody that is a halacha that's said in his name, in this world, and after he's buried, his lips are moving in the kever because his halacha is, that he said is being repeated. So therefore there's no source from here for tchias hamesim either. Until he told them this pasuk where it says, as we quoted before, it says that the Oves will get up again and will inherit the land. Others say, he brought them the following pasuk. So the word hayom here is extra. Why does it say hayom? So we skip the parentheses. Ma hayom kulchem kayamin. Just like today, you are all alive. Af lo olam haba kulchem kayamim. Olam haba, you'll all be alive and will be zeichet et chiyas hamesim. The Romans asked Rabbi Shua ben Chananya, from where do we know that Hashem will be Machayim Mesim, and also how do we know that Hashem knows the future? He brought them for both points the same pasuk that we quoted before. The pasuk says, so you darshan the pasuk v'kom, that it's connected to the beginning of the pasuk, that he will die, he will pass away, and he will get up again. And then it says v'kom ha'amazev zana. Hashem is saying the future that will happen, that the Yidden will rebel. So we see also the point that Hashem knows the future. But they asked, when it says v'kam, it does not refer to Tchias HaMesim, but it's just talking about the people that will rebel. So Rabbi Shua ben Chananya answered, but at least I brought you a proof in the pasuk for half of what you are asking. The Yidei Mashasad Li is that Hashem knows the future. We also learned about Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Minayin Shakadosh Baruch Hu Mechayim Mesim. What's the source of Tchias HaMesim? And also that V'yidei Mashasad Li is that Hashem knows the future. Shenamar Hincha Shreicha v'Mavisecha v'Kam v'Goyim. So he brought this pasuk where you see both points. With this point that I'm about to say here, Ziyafti Sifrei Minim, I showed the forgery, the falsehood of the Sfarim of the minim of the heretics that don't believe in the what the Chachamim say. They said, there's no source of Tchias HaMesim in HaTorah. I said to them, you are forging your Torah, you're lying about your Torah, and what you say is worthless because it can be disproven. That you say, there's no Tchias HaMesim in HaTorah, but there's a pasuk that says, Hikares hanefesh, that the soul that sins will be cut off. It uses a double term of kares, avayna ba, and then it uses a term also, avayna ba. What is all these terms? Hikares, what's the two terms here? Ba'ilam hazeh. So it refers to Noilam hazeh, and then when it says avayna ba, when it says afterwards that there will still be a sin, la'emas, when is this referring to? Lav, la'ilam haba. Don't you think this is referring to Eilam haba? And therefore we see over here that this refers to the time of Eilam haba, and therefore there's a source for Tchias HaMesim. But our Papa says to Abaye, but he should say to them, Tarvayumi hikares tekares. Just from the two words, hikares tekares. Why does it say a double term here? Hikares means Eilam hazeh, and tekares means Eilam haba. Why did he have to bring it from the additional word avayna ba? And says the Gemara, because then they would say to him, that the double term of hikares tekares is not approved, because we find that this is the way people speak, and the Torah uses the same terminology. The Gemara brings that this is a machlokes Tanoim, how you darshan these words. Hikares tikares. So one opinion here is Rabbi Akiva says hikares ba'olam hazeh, tikares la'olam haba. Rabbi Akiva that we'd actually do darshan these two words, one for olam hazeh and the other for olam haba. Amalei Rabbi Shmuel, but Balek Farnema, there's another place where the pasuk already says a third time kares es Hashem hu megadev v'nichrisa. So it says again v'nichrisa, and according to Rabbi Shmuel, megadev refers to Avodah Zarah as well. It goes together, the Megadev and Avodah Zarah. So therefore he asks, V'chishleisha elamim yesh, are there three worlds that it says three times Kares regarding Avodah Zarah? Ella, therefore he says, V'nichlisa means Ba'olam hazeh, and Hikares means La'olam haba. Hikares tikares, the double lashon here, you do not darshan this because Dibra Torah kalashon b'nei adam. The Torah is just speaking in the language of people. This is the way Rabbi Shmuel darshans this. But however, according to Rabbi Akiva, we learned this earlier in the Masechta. According to Rabbi Akiva, the Megadev and Avodah Zarah is two separate things. But now the Gemara concludes, Bein Rabbi Shmuel, Bein Rabbi Akiva, Avayna ba, my avdi bey. The words Avayna ba, which are extra according to both of their opinions, what are you darshan from this? Likiditanya, as it says in the Braise, Yochel afilu asa tshuva, you would think that the punishment of Kares is even if he did tshuva, Talmud Laima Avayna ba, which means Leimarti Ele Bezman Shavayna ba, that Kares is only if he still is holding on to his Aveda. But if he did tshuva before he passed away, then the Einish of Kares will not apply to him.